Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and this is episode 2 of my Hindu wedding series. So I'm not going to waste any time, I'm just going to get straight into it. If you haven't watched episode 1, please go and watch episode 1. It is in my playlist. It will be above this video. So please make sure you watch it because otherwise you won't understand what I'm talking about next. So today's video is going to be all about creating that not so perfect guest list and venues. So first of all, guest lists, okay? That's the first thing you need to do because otherwise you don't even know the numbers of people roughly of who's going to come to your events. Now, it may seem like a daunting task, which it is. I won't lie to you. It takes a while to come up with a guest list purely for the fact that there's so many people to think about. All these people and all these friendships, relationships, acquaintances that you've made throughout your life. You have to think about all these people and do I want to invite them? And don't forget, in the Tamil culture, if you are the first person to get married in the family, best believe you're going to have to invite all your mum and dad's classmates because they will want to be invited because of that one time that your dad told them when he was younger that when I have kids, I will invite you to my wedding. All these promises, but unfortunately, that's the way it goes. So for my wedding, I had to invite a lot of people that I didn't know purely for the fact that I was number one. Now, if you have somewhat of a decent relationship with your parents, which I do, I did fight back a little bit and say, look, I don't want certain people invited because I genuinely don't know them. But if you really feel strongly about it, then definitely vocalize that to your parents. Although I do know in the Tamil culture, that is a pretty hard thing to do. So when coming up with a guest list, don't forget you will be modifying this throughout the wedding. This is not going to be your set guest list. This guest list is there to help you get an idea of the numbers for your wedding events. So once you send out your save the dates, etc., you'll get a better idea. But this is just for you to get a rough estimate of what is the numbers that we're looking at. So for me, my side is really big, like really, really big. And so is Rajaband's. So we knew that, okay, we're going to have a decent sized wedding, but obviously COVID came in the middle of that. So we were able to cut a lot of people out that weren't going to be able to come, like from abroad or high risk, etc., etc. So depending on your circumstances, are completely different. And I think post COVID now, loads of people are doing intimate garden weddings and just house weddings and things like that, which I think is really cute. So yeah, completely depends on what you have discussed with your partner and your family. But yeah, you probably will have more people on your guest list than you think and that will actually come. Trust me, you'd rather be able to remove people than add people because adding people is a lot harder than removing, if that makes sense. I would also create a mood board. So you can do this however you want to do it. There are apps to do this. You could print it out, an actual vision board. However you think is going to be best for you to visualize, then do it that way. But creating a mood board is really, really useful because you'll be able to see exactly how you've visualized your wedding and wedding events. This can include your color scheme, your decor, how you want your venue to even look. I mean, for me, I knew that I wanted somewhat of a castle venue in particular for at least one of my events. So for me, that was a non-negotiable. And that was on my mood board. Same with my sister. So depending on what it is you want, as long as you've got it laid out, it's easier to help you visualize. So venue, your sari colors, your bridesmaids colors, your everything really. And then when it comes to picking your vendors and your saris, it's much more easier for you because you've obviously already visualized it through this mood board. I do want to put a disclaimer as well that the order of the videos that I will be doing this in is not necessarily the order that you feel like you should do it in. This is just what worked for me and this is what made sense for me. Doesn't mean that you have to do this in the same order. I mean, I'm purely doing these videos to be able to give you tips on each aspect of the wedding. So watch it in whatever order that you feel. But this is how I'm going to be doing it. So with venues, this is a great starting point for wedding planning in general, because from this, you'll be able to book a lot of your vendors. For example, photographers and videographers, DJ, decor, so many different things, because depending on the venue that you even book, there comes a list with recommendations of certain caterers that they use or certain decor that they use. Sometimes you're not allowed to actually get external vendors. So it really depends on what venue that you actually book. Also, depending on the location of where your venue is, sometimes photographers and videographers can charge more. So, for example, a venue like Kew Gardens, for example, is going to be quite costly. So, photographers and videographers will probably charge you more because of the location in itself. So, those kind of things you need to take into account. So, for me, I didn't have many non-negotiables when it came to venue. Like I mentioned before, I always knew I wanted a manor or a castle, but I was more than happy to do that for my reception. So me and my husband decided to pick a castle slash manor for our reception, which I will go into more detail once we get there. In terms of my Hindu wedding venue, I didn't really have a preference. For me, because we ended up having 400 guests, and yes, guys, I know that was even during COVID. So imagine how many people I would have had. So 400 guests, we needed to find a venue that was going to fit that many people. We looked at a lot of different websites, which I will put in the description box below. We just did extensive amount of research. We checked Instagram, we checked TikTok. Google is mainly where I did all my research, really Googling venues around in the area and in Essex, because where we live, we're from Essex, both of us. It made sense that we would do it in Essex as well. We didn't want everybody to travel. I mean, we did look at a venue in central London, but we just thought, God, the hassle of trying to get there with the coaches, etc. So you need to think about all these things, guys, because depending on your numbers, depending on location, you may need to arrange like a transport, like a coach to come and pick them up. So yeah, it is quite long, but you'll get there. Don't worry. I started contacting all the venues that I came across for my Hindu wedding, and I stated how many guests I had as well as a date. And this is why it's so important that you pick your date and get your date that you actually want to get married on, because then you are able to contact venues. So hence why I said venues is a great starting point. The thing is with venues, I've found that they get booked in advance way quicker than they used to. I feel like when my cousins were getting married, venues weren't getting booked up as quick as they are now. Now I've heard that some venues are 3 years in advance booked, 2.5 years. And I think, first of all, that's ridiculous because it's two in advance. I mean, I now know a lot of my friends even have done this where, they're not even engaged and they're planning their wedding, and then they get engaged and then they get married. So there's new ways of, getting married and doing that wedding planning process, which I'm all for. But because of this is why venues are getting booked up very quickly. So I would get a start on venue ASAP. A lot of people look at outfits, a lot of people look at makeup artists. These are things that you can do alongside this, but venue should be your main starting point, and you should really put a lot of effort into looking for a venue, trying to book it ASAP because of the fact that they get booked in advance. So when you're looking for a venue, what are you actually looking for? So do you want a venue or do you want a marquee? Do you want a marquee with a beautiful venue in the back, or are you not bothered? Is it that you want to use the grounds or you want to use the venue in itself? What location would you like? Do you want to do somewhere that's halfway between you and your other half, or do you not mind picking a location that is easy for you both to get to as well as other people that you're inviting, but it's not technically where you guys are from? It's completely up to you, but these are questions that you need answers for, because it's going to make a big difference in terms of also how much you're going to pay. Essex tends to be cheaper than central London, for example, but if you go for places like Chelmsford, that is like Boreham House, Highlands House, all the big houses where all the big Asian weddings are, you're going to have to pay at least £10,000 plus. Boreham House is, when I was inquiring with it, was about £20,000, guys. So you're going to need a lot of money for venues if this is the kind of venues that you want. And if you're going to have a big fat Asian wedding with multiple events, then you need to think about that aspect as well. Can you find a venue that's going to offer you a good cost effective package for multiple dates, so that you just can use one venue, maybe different rooms within the venue, so that you're changing up a bit, changing up the decor, etc. Packages, it's what's going to save you money. Another good thing about COVID, I just feel like this is becoming a COVID video, guys, but only because I got married during like post pandemic, it's relevant. Because of COVID since then, and because of that, during COVID, they were offering virtual tours, and they've continued to do that, which is really good. Because if, for example, you're not able to get out to the venue as quick as you would like, this allows you to check on their website on how the venue actually looks like. And then you're able to see with your partner, is this actually the location that we like? Is this a venue that we like? Is this something in our top 5? Is it actually not coming across this off our list? So it's really good to do a virtual tour. And I definitely recommend. A lot of venues do open days, and this is when a lot of bride and grooms all go together, um, all on the same day. So you'll see a lot of different couples there. But it's really good because sometimes in open days in venues, they get other vendors to come as well. So you get to meet a lot of different vendors, get leaflets, get their business cards, ring them up, email them, find out quotes, things like that. Is really, really good for networking. And also you get a goodie bag when you go to an open day of things you may need for wedding planning. And I mean, why not? Every little thing helps, right? Tesco sponsor me, yeah? Just said your tagline and it was relevant. Another thing that I would do, and a lot of people don't do this, is ask your family and friends that have got married previously. Where did you get married? Where were you inquiring? What kind of places did you like? Because there are so many venues out there. Honestly, I have attended some weddings in the past where I've never even heard of this venue. I've never even seen this venue, but it's a gorgeous venue that I never would have come across unless I had attended these weddings. So if you're a bride to be or groom to be, please ask your friends, because honestly, word of mouth is so important. People don't write bad reviews online unless you're a Karen, of course. Karens write bad reviews online, but general people don't. And that is why it's really hard to find good vendors as well, because you think I'm going for a good vendor and you get there, you go through the wedding planning process and you're like, they were a bit crap, they weren't nice people, etc., etc. And you wouldn't have known that because it's not written anywhere. And so now you've just, picked a vendor that you don't even really like. Do you know what I mean? So make sure you ask your friends and family for help. That's what they're there for. The staff can make a big difference. If the staff are horrible, trust me, it will ruin your whole experience. I got married at City Pavilion in Romford, which is a Hindu wedding venue. They have two halls, one upstairs, one downstairs. Now, a lot of stuff happened. If you want me to do a separate video on this, I can. I mean, I have a good relationship with them now, but at the time it was not good. We were promised a lot of stuff and then we weren't given it. And luckily we got the best end of the straw, to be honest. Very, very luckily, just because I am so adamant that everything needs to be written down in writing. So this is another tip that I'll give you guys. When working with any wedding vendor, if there is something that is agreed verbally, please make sure you write it down. Just send them a text. Be like, thank you for today's call. This is what we discussed. Rah, rah, rah. You said that this would be fine. Blah, blah, blah. Done. And then at least if they try to go back from their word, you've got it in writing. You've got a screenshot that says, look, this is what you said actually. So you can't go back on it. And then that's it. That's what you need to do. It's really, really important, guys, that you do that. So that would be my biggest tip. I know that's not relevant to venues, but it is, because venues are the biggest costs that you would have, as well as food and decor. So you really need to make sure that you are on it when it comes to these guys, as well as photographers and videographers. I would also recommend, when you are going venue hunting, please only bring the people that are going to add value to the call. So for me, my mum and dad did contribute a lot to paying for my wedding. My dad is quite traditional in the sense that he always wanted to pay for his daughter's wedding, and that was fine. I did contribute as well, but my dad did pay for a lot of it. So I included them in decisions when we would go venue hunting, when we did decor, food, things like that. They were very heavily involved with the vendors that I thought they needed to, because my mum and dad, they know how to negotiate, guys. They're very good at it. I won't say anything about that, but make sure you're bringing people that is going to add value. So whether that's your siblings, your in-laws. When I say in-laws, I mean like brother-in-law, sister-in-law. If your siblings are married, cousins that you're close to, friends, best friend, etc. Because you need to bring the right people that are going to ask the right questions. Because in that moment when you're going venue hunting, I keep saying venue hunting, but I don't know what else to call it. When you're going to choose a venue and when you're going to look at venues, you need to have a list of questions that you're going to be ready to ask. Because after you do the venue tour, you go and sit in the office and they ask you, what would you like to know? And this is when you need to ask the right questions. You need to ask them, do they have a list of vendors that they recommend? Are you allowed to bring any external vendors? Obviously, as Sri Lankan Tamils, there aren't many vendors that we can choose from in terms of food when it is recommended by a company, by a venue company, for example. So we always have to bring in external vendors because a lot of the vendors that they recommend are Indians, and unless you're Indian Tamil, that would work for you. But as Sri Lankan Tamil people, you know, it's different food, right? So those are a couple questions that you need to ask. What are the vendors, and are you allowed to bring in external vendors, and is there an extra cost for that? Do I get the venue for the whole day, or are you only going to give me a certain part of the location? This is really important because for photography and videography, if you have the whole grounds, then it's all yours. You have the freedom to go and take whatever you want, wherever you want. If there is another wedding happening on the same day somewhere else, but within the same grounds, you're going to have to match up with them and be like, okay, where are they? Where can I take photos? Where am I not allowed to cross over into? Sometimes they can be really strict and say, okay, this is only your section. You can't go past it because this is their section. So you need to ask that. Is there any other ceremonies? Do I get a bridal suite along with this? Because sometimes it's really nice. Not sometimes. It is really nice to take pictures in your bridal suite. Have that time with you and your girls, your bridesmaids, if you're having any, with your mom. Sit in there, have a bit of short eats if you're sly, and just really have a moment to yourself before you go and get married. So these kind of things you need to ask. Is there somewhere for you to get changed? So bridal suite, yes, if there is one, and are you allowed to bring other people to get change in there, or is it just yourself? Is it going to be locked? Will people lock it? Because you don't want to be leaving your stuff in there and then finding out actually, yeah, it's accessible to the public. That's the last thing you need, right? All your valuables in there, they need to be safe. How many bathrooms does the venue have? If they've only got one and one, okay, right, it's going to be a bit of a struggle here, because if I'm having a 500, 600 people wedding, imagine how long that's going to be. The queues are going to be long. They're probably going to miss your wedding queuing up for the toilet. With a Hindu wedding, it does take a long time to set up stages, the mandap, putting the flowers on, putting, if you're getting the little Ganeshes or whatever it is that you're getting in the aisle, the runner, the tables, the chairs, etc., etc. Are they going to allow you to come the night before to do this? That's also a question. If there is no event going on, then ask them, are you able to come in the day before? And make sure, once again, you get this in writing, because trust me, I've seen people go off the basis of a verbal agreement, get there, and they're like, we never agreed to that. So do not make that mistake. As we are talking about venues, we can talk about reception. We can talk about venues for a reception as well, because if you're going to book everything at the same venue, then it makes sense. A lot of people are doing Hindu wedding and receptions on the same day now. So is it going to be the same cost for the whole day? Are you going to charge me extra? Is there accommodation on site? After the reception, you want to sleep over. I mean, it's so much easier to sleep over on site than find an accommodation of a hotel nearby, then trying to remove all the stuff to move it to there. Oh, it's just so much effort. So if there's accommodation site, great. Do they have insurance, and what kind of licenses do they hold? So for a reception, or for Hindu, do they allow drones? Because a lot of vendors now, for videographers and photographers, use drones. That is part of the highlight video. It's always drone footage. But if the venue says no, you need to think about that. Is getting drone footage really important to me? Is the photographer, videographer that I'm choosing, are they going to be using drones? So that's something that you need to think about. Alcohol, do they have an alcohol license? And if so, what is the time that you're allowed to serve alcohol until? Because sometimes they ask you to stop serving it prior to a certain time. So they might say, okay, you have the venue until 12, but you can only serve alcohol until 11. How long do you have the venue until? Are you able to extend it? Now, oh my God, the amount of wedding receptions that I've been to, and this is a common question. People are asking on the day of the wedding, can we extend it? Can we extend it? And no, it's too late. That's why you need to plan these things in advance. Are you party people? Do you like to party? If you do, then you need to make sure that you at least are having an end time of at least 1 or 2, if possible. I had 1. I regret that I didn't extend it to 2, because we were not bad for timing, but at the end of the day, we just wanted a bit more time to dance. Do you know what I mean? When the DJ's popping, everything's popping, you're living your best life. Everyone was drunk, like at my wedding reception. Everyone. People got carried out, for example. I'm not going to say any names, don't worry. But yeah, because of that, like, it was just such a good wedding, especially because it was the first one after COVID. So everyone enjoyed themselves, and I'm really happy they did. but 2 a.m. would have just been better. So ask them, are you able to extend it and how much would that cost? A lot of Hindu weddings now, I've noticed that they're starting to put like really big screens, like LED screens. But not only that, like actual screens to show like the audience. Like a lot of them do it in France. It's quite funny and interactive where like they zoom in on like different people in the audience. It's kind of like funny, to be honest. But also a lot of them, what they do is if you're not having a reception, then sometimes they use the LED screen to show like highlight videos and things from the Hindu wedding itself, or like pre-shoot. So you need to ask your venues, do they allow big LED screens? And if so, is that an added cost, or is there anything that they need to do in regards to this? Fireworks, I completely forgot this. I did fireworks at my wedding and I had to make sure that my venue allowed it, and they said yes, but not all venues agree with it. So please make sure that this is something that you're okay with, because there's no point you planning that you want all these suppliers and then your venue says no. One thing I would say as well is that don't panic at the beginning of your wedding planning, because you've got so much time, guys. Well, you might not have too much, you might have about 6 months, which is what I had. But trust me, if I can do it in 6 months in a pandemic where I've never organized anything as such a big scale event like this, then trust me, you'll be fine. But the key thing is, do not panic. Delegate this to other people. Ask your friends and family for help. Can you help me with this? I mean, with venues, when I was looking for venues, I asked my husband, can you look for venues? I asked my sister, can you look for venues? I asked my mum, can you look for venues? We were all looking for venues, sending it across to each other, inquiring, emailing. It wasn't just me. You know, my mum and sister were emailing on behalf of me. They knew all the information they needed to get an inquiry, to get a call. Then obviously I would have a call with the venue myself, and then we would pick a date to go and see the venue. But make sure you ask for help, guys. You don't need to do this on your own. I know that there are a lot of brides that are like, but I would feel really more fulfilled if at the wedding day I feel like I did this all myself. That's great, guys, but is it worth the stress and your mental health and anxiety and all of that of what it put you through to get to this point? No. Just ask for help. Please ask for help. And trust me, you'll be thanking me after that you did ask. That's all my tips for venues and creating a guest list. And that, personally, for me, I think is a great starting point to your wedding planning. Don't get me wrong, while you're booking your venue, please do make sure you look at other vendors like makeup artists, etc., because they get booked out really quickly. But I will be making separate videos on each supplier that you will be using as part of your wedding planning process and wedding day. So I can give you a bit more detail on those things. But I hope this was useful. This is episode 2 wrapped up. So follow me for more. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Comment with what other tips. I mean, I might have missed out some venue tips. So if you have any other tips that you have learned from your own wedding planning process, or things that you've heard from other people that have been married before, then do comment below and let me know so we can share, because this is all about sharing our knowledge to help future brides and grooms to be. And make sure you stay tuned for my next episode, which is going to be all about photographers, videographers, and DJ. And once again, thank you for watching. See you in my next one. Bye. Oh, don't forget to share this with people, of course, obviously. Not that I need to say that, but if you found this useful, please share it with other brides and grooms to be, and that would really help me as well. Thank you. Bye.